Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm AndyRC and today I'm going to be checking out the Topsky Prime II FPV goggles. Now, previously on the channel I reviewed the version before these, and on paper they were great, but in reality they were plagued with problems. Now, not a lot has actually changed when it comes to the interface and layout against the Prime 1S, so I'll put a card up in the corner if you're interested in what all the buttons do, and in this video I'm just going to concentrate on what they have actually changed. But to summarize the product, they are the cheapest non-box goggle that you can buy, with each eyepiece having its own LCD screen, and as I say, on paper they look superb, which created a load of hype around the first version, but in reality they were just okay. This is a budget goggle, so despite what it says on paper, you can't expect these to be up there with the best, because apart from Topsky's FPV watch, there have been quality control issues with all of their goggles. It's also why I've kind of waited a month or so before taking a look at them, because I wanted you guys who have already bought them to comment in the below your experience, as the V1s were a total lottery as to whether you got a good one or not. If you look at my review of the V1, I had to take them apart because I could only get them working intermittently on Fat Shark Channel 1, and it was just a loose ribbon connector, but it wasn't fun taking them apart, and even then there were a couple of dead pixels in the LCD panels. So first of all, the colour has changed. The V1 was white and this one is red. The red plastic near the faceplate is slightly translucent, so you get quite a lot of light leak through the material, which I actually don't recall the first one having. I can show you this by holding it up to a light. This could be fixed with a load of black tape, I suppose. They have upgraded the faceplate to this faux leather cushion, which is much nicer than the foam from the V1. It uses the same Velcro system, so you can replace the padding, but the Velcro tends to come off when you try to remove it, which, to be fair, isn't unusual even in higher end goggles. You aren't given a spare one either, which you did get with the V1, but I guess it's better for them to spend the money developing something decent rather than providing two foam pads that are inferior. They have extended the nose cutout slightly with these half circles, although I had no issues with my nose rubbing on the V1, and I've got a big nose, but perhaps it was needed for other people. I can't remember this being an issue either, but they have added an indent below the micro SD card slot so that you can get to it easier if you have sausage fingers. One thing that I didn't test with the V1 was the diversity system, and I was getting great reception and range when flying behind trees, and with the goggle having no indication to which receiver it's using, I assumed the diversity system was working well. However, as I understand it, many people discovered that when they put an antenna on the left receiver, it wasn't working despite it being powered up and getting warm. I think it ended up being a problem with the main board, and that's something that has been fixed in the V2. The LCDs seem to be the same, but this time the resolution is listed as 480 by 320, which is a lower resolution than the Prime 1S. I think they had to look into this because Joshua Bardwell also had to take his V1s apart and noted that the LCDs had a part listing on the back which included the number 240, and when you look at the back of mine it also says that, but 240 is not the resolution, it's the screen size, which in this case is 2.4 inches. Here's an example of a 2.8 inch panel reading 280 in its part number. So why the resolution downgrade? Well, despite the 240p thing being an incorrect assumption, I've been told they just made a mistake and the panels are indeed 480 by 320. But whether you believe it was a mistake or not, it's kind of hard not to feel misled by those initial figures of the Prime 1S. If you look online, you can buy these panels for pennies if you buy enough of them in bulk, which explains why one of my panels has a few dead pixels. Now, this isn't the first time I've seen dead pixels on budget goggles. You get what you pay for, but when you are flying, you don't actually see them But if you are picky about this kind of stuff, then it looks like it's going to be a lottery whether you get good panels or not. I have heard about Topsky stepping up to the plate with this kind of stuff though, and replacing boards and parts for free. So you guys are going to have to let me know your experience in the comments, and hopefully it can help other people where to best spend their cash. Either way, they are flyable despite 480 by 320 being a lower resolution than the analog signal sent out by 5.8 GHz video transmitters, which I think says more about analog in general rather than these screens, but I'm not going to get into that now. One thing I couldn't get my head around is that 480 by 320 should result in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and as I mentioned in my first review of these, the screen's aspect ratio is more like a 16:10 image, but in short these are RGB panels which have gaps between the pixel array, and it's these gaps which spread out the aspect ratio to a wider image. They are also listing the field of view as 76 degrees against the 86 degrees of the previous version. It looks the same to me, and there has been a slight editing error in the manual because on one page it says 86 degrees and on the other page it says 76. The diopter adjustment hasn't changed. It moves the screens about 5mm back and forth. So the diopter adjustment range, they quote, can't be accurate. Although I'm not getting any eye strain, so perhaps those figures are more of an indication of the prescriptions that can still see an image with these goggles rather than the adjustment. But I can't confirm that, so perhaps some of you guys who need a powerful reading glasses prescription can shed some light on this in the comments if you took a punt with these goggles. One thing for sure is that you can't wear glasses over these goggles, with them being more compact than the box goggles. Although I've seen some people buy cheap reading glasses and then remove the lenses and custom fit them over the top of the lenses of the goggles, so maybe you could try that. They say that they have increased the focal length by 10mm, so that might be why they are easier on my eyes and could also be the reason for the smaller field of view claim. Anyways, the last thing that's changed is how you play back the DVR. It used to be a long press down of the DVR button, but now the button used in the V1 to take a snapshot has a play icon by it, and you no longer have to turn off the internal RF modules to enter the menu. It takes up to a 32GB SD card, and if you have any other files on there, then when you go into the playback mode, everything locks up. So the micro SD card has to be pretty much dedicated to this goggle. You can now fast forward and rewind in playback mode, and I don't think you could do that before, but you can't delete the files from the menu, so you'd have to plug the SD card into a computer to do that. You also get given the same linear antennas, so I'm going to swap them out for my favorite setup, which is the Menace periscope and the Menace Pico patch antenna. I'm going to do my usual test with my KISS Alien, setting the VTX to 25mW, and then hang the Fat Shark HDOs with the rapid fire module around my neck using the same antenna setup. This upsets a lot of people because it's, quote, not a fair comparison, unquote. But I think it's important to show how the cheapest setups or mid-range setups perform against the most expensive, because if I'd have seen what that little extra bit gives you with the high-end stuff, I could have saved myself a fortune by not buying a string of cheap goggles that in the end probably added up to more than the price of the high-end stuff that I'm using now. So let's take a look at some DVR footage. We've got the Prime II on the left and the HDO Rapid Fire on the right. I have resized the Prime II's aspect ratio to 4:3 so we can get a like for like against the HDO Rapid Fire, and I'm just flying around these trees here to see the breakup between the two, and you know what, it's obvious that the Rapid Fire is going to be better, but the Prime II's receiver modules performed really well. They are definitely on par with the Ionway V1S built-in receivers and also the Sky Zone Sky02X receivers that I reviewed recently when I compare them against the Rapid Fire. Anyways, I'm going to show you the full resolution of the Prime II DVR whilst I'm trying to reposition myself to go over to the other side of the field. And I do think that even though it has a higher resolution, it's definitely got less clarity. I think maybe it's upscaled. And then I will show you the resolution of the DVR on the Fat Sharks, and then also below that up, and you can see more detail, I think, even though the resolution is actually lower with the Fat Sharks. Anyways, I have gone to the other side of the field, and this is where I get the most amount of breakup, and it's not doing too bad. Like I say, the Prime II, it's performing probably a little bit better actually than the SkyZones did, and also the Ionway V1S. One thing that I can do with the Rapid Fire is that there is a gap between those small trees, and I can get through that with the Rapid Fire, and I cannot with these goggles or any of the other goggles. So that is what you are getting with the Rapid Fire. But I got to say, I'm really impressed with this system, especially for the price. So this Prime II goggle does actually record audio. It's not as good as the Fat Shark audio, so I'll let you have a listen at the Prime II's audio. And then we can take a listen at the Fat Shark with Rapid Fire's audio. So yeah, I think the Fat Shark does audio recording better, but you know, it costs 5 times as much, maybe 6 times, so you know, I cannot complain at all, you know. And as I say, I'm flying this thing. This is the KISS Alien. I chose this model because it's the most expensive model that I have, and I always say, you know, if I can fly this model comfortably with a pair of goggles without worry, then it passes the test, you know. And I was able to see fine. In fact, towards the end of the video, I start diving trees and things, and I've got enough clarity. Anyways, just practicing a little bit of freestyle here, and just generally seeing how it performs in an open field. But obviously, you know, it's doing pretty good. There's not a lot of breakup there. It's only here, really, where you get the breakup behind the trees. And it looks pretty equal between the Rapid Fire, but I know the Rapid Fire does a little bit better. I was flying with the Prime IIs, so I didn't feel comfortable to go any further, whereas with the Rapid Fire, when I'm flying, I do. But look at that, diving trees and stuff like that. And you really have to have the clarity when you're threading the needle like that. The same goes for this tree here. So you can do it with these goggles. It's just a lottery to whether you get a decent set or not, which I think is a shame. They need to put some quality control in there, I think, and if they did that, then they'd be onto a winner. But would I recommend these goggles? It's a difficult one. I think I would still say go for the Eachine EV800D. They are a bigger goggle, obviously, but I think they have got better quality control and the resolution is higher. Anyways, if you are interested in the Prime II, I'll put a link in the description. And as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.